Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss important updates like this. Your support really helps the channel grow. Now, let's get into today's story. This political battle just took a dramatic turn, and Nigeria's highest court has stepped in to correct what it calls a serious legal mistake. But here's the twist. Even after the Supreme Court judgment, the real fight is far from over. Let's break this down step by step so you can clearly understand what's going on. At the center of this case is a leadership crisis inside the African Democratic Congress, also known as the ADC. Two major figures are involved, David Mark and Nafiu Bala. Both sides are currently fighting over who should control the party. Now, Nafiu Bala, who is a former vice chairman of the party, went to the Federal High Court with a strong claim. He argued that he never resigned from his position. According to him, when the former national chairman stepped down, he was supposed to take over leadership based on the party's constitution. Because of that, Bala declared himself as the rightful national chairman and asked the court to stop David Mark and his team from presenting themselves as leaders of the party. He also asked that INEC, Nigeria's electoral body, should recognize him instead.
As I address today, I argue INEC to place my name on the portal, requiring by the status quo antebellum order of the Court of Appeal.
But here's where things started getting complicated. When the case first got to the Federal High Court, the judge did not give a final judgment. The court only made a temporary move. It simply told all the parties involved to come forward and explain themselves. In simple terms, this was just the beginning of the case. No winner was declared and nothing had been decided yet. However, instead of waiting for the court to fully hear the case, David Mark took a different step. He went straight to the Court of Appeal. His argument was that the Federal High Court did not even have the authority to hear the case in the first place. In other words, he believed the case should not be there at all. But the Court of Appeal did not agree with him. In fact, they dismissed his appeal completely. They said his case had no merit and should not have been brought before them at that stage. The court gave several reasons for this decision. First, they said there was no actual ruling from the Federal High Court that could be appealed. The lower court had not made any final decision. It had only asked parties to come and explain themselves. Second, they said the matter was still at an early stage and the appeal was premature. Simply put, David Mark moved too quickly. Third, they pointed out that he did not follow proper legal procedure. For a case like this, he was supposed to ask for permission, known as leave, before filing an appeal, but he failed to do that. So based on all these reasons, the Court of Appeal threw out his case entirely. Now, this is where the real controversy began. Even after dismissing the appeal, the Court of Appeal went ahead to give an additional order. They told all parties involved to maintain the status quo. What does that mean? It simply means everyone should keep things the way they were before the dispute escalated. No changes, no new actions, and no attempts to take control. Everything should remain as it is until the main case is decided. This particular order created confusion. Why? Because after that judgment, INEC reviewed the situation and decided not to recognize either side, not David Mark's group and not Nafiu Bala's group. The electoral body basically stepped back and said it would not deal with any of them for now. At this point, David Mark was not satisfied with the outcome. So he took the matter to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in Nigeria. Now, this is where the most important part of the story happens. The Supreme Court carefully reviewed everything that had happened, from the Federal High Court to the Court of Appeal, and their judgment was very balanced. First, the Supreme Court agreed with the Court of Appeal on one key issue. They said David Mark was wrong to file that appeal when he did. According to the Supreme Court, since the case at the Federal High Court had not been fully heard or decided, he should have first asked for permission before going to the appellate court. So on that point, the Court of Appeal was correct. But then, the Supreme Court identified a major problem. They said the Court of Appeal made a serious legal mistake by giving that status quo order after dismissing the appeal. In simple terms, the Supreme Court explained that once a court dismisses a case, it no longer has the authority to start issuing additional instructions related to that same case. So by telling parties to maintain the status quo after throwing out the appeal, the Court of Appeal acted beyond its powers. The Supreme Court described that action as unnecessary, unwarranted, and improper. Because of that, the Supreme Court cancelled that status quo order completely. That part of the judgment is now invalid. So what happens next? The Supreme Court gave a very clear final direction. They ordered all parties to return to the Federal High Court where the original case was filed. That is where the real battle will now take place. This means that up until now, no court has actually decided who the rightful leader of the ADC is. Let me say that again clearly. No winner has been declared. The Supreme Court did not say David Mark is right, and it did not say Nafiu Bala is right either. All the Supreme Court did was correct a legal mistake and send the case back to the proper court for full hearing. So the real case, the one that will determine who truly leads the party, is still ahead. This judgment is important because it reinforces a key principle in law. Courts must operate within their limits. Even if a court has good intentions, it cannot give orders outside its authority. It also shows the importance of following proper legal procedure. Rushing to appeal without completing the necessary steps can weaken your case, no matter how strong your arguments may be. For now, the leadership crisis in the ADC remains unresolved, and all eyes are now back on the Federal High Court, where the real decision will finally be made. This is where the actual legal battle begins. And until the court gives a final judgment, the question of who truly leads the ADC remains open. If you found this explanation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with others so they can also understand what's happening. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.